All right. And I'll go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everybody, to the Meadows Makers Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd. I am making stuff in the Hive community and on Hive. And I have my blog is making stuff on hive.blog. If you guys want to go there and check it out after you check out the podcast tonight. And you can see some blogs and things that I've done, some projects I've worked on, stuff that's available there to try to help you become more self-reliant. And tonight I have the pleasure of bringing on a guest, is my buddy SEK McGora. We met at the activation tour, I guess it was in 2021, when Derek Bros came through Tennessee. We met over there, and we've been staying in touch, and SEK has got all kinds of cool stuff going on. He's a homesteader. He's got his own landscaping business, and all around just trying to spread the philosophy of agorism. Has his own podcast, Agora the Podcast, with a co-host Penguin, and they're just spreading the message and trying to get it out to more people on how we can recapture our sovereignty. And with that being said, SEK, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, brother?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be on here.
Yeah, buddy. It's excited to have you on. We haven't been able to we haven't sit down and chatted about some stuff in a while. So excited about doing that tonight on the show and getting to know you a little bit better. So that's usually what I'd like to start off the podcast with is tell me a little bit about your origin story. How did you find Agorism, and was there a specific point in time? Have you always kind of been liberty minded? Was there an event or something that brought you to this point that you're at, doing the homesteading and starting your own podcast and all that kind of stuff?
So, looking back, I kind of had a weird childhood. So,
okay,
I'll try to keep this brief, but my parents were anarchists.
Wow.
They were like,
I don't get too many people that say that.
yeah. So they were sort of like a hippie, back to the land, radical types. I spent a lot of my childhood going to like anti-war protests, and they were big into ending the drug war. So we went to a lot of cannabis freedom rallies and stuff like that. And I grew up on a 60-acre homestead, and we grew a lot of our own food. We were pretty dirt poor because hippies aren't often that good with money, and we had a lot of our own food, chickens and gardens and stuff. So we grew a lot of that. So really, I mean, I started out as a bit of an anarchist, but
Wow.
then as a teenager, is really, I guess, when I started actually reading and formulating my own ideas about these things. And I think I first read Pierre Joseph Proudhon when I was about 13 or 14 years old, and then from there I kind of spent a lot of my teenage years reading and smoking a lot of pot. So I was
really?
reading, yeah. So I was reading a lot of philosophy and a lot of political theory and stuff like that. But how I got into agorism was kind of a roundabout way. As I said, I was already an anarchist, but I was a bit of a conspiracy theorist and I don't mean that pejoratively. That's just what I was into in my teenage years.
Looking into information, questioning
information, yeah, elite analysis. We'll say I was very into elite analysis. So I stumbled across Murray Rothbard, mainly through his work. I believe the piece is called "Wall Street Bankers and American Foreign Policy." This would have been maybe late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And that's how I kind of stumbled across Rothbard was mainly his history on the banking cartel. So from there, got into a lot of other, um, I guess we'll say, Austrian-oriented anarchists, such as Konkin and Karl Hess, and from there the list goes on. Um, and I at some point became very disillusioned with the idea that I would never see, disillusioned with the idea that anarchism would ever come in my lifetime. So I
Yeah.
kind of backed off a little bit, and I campaigned for Ron Paul. I tried to get involved in like local politics and stuff, and after a while, it became very apparent that that was not the path forward, for at least for me. And so since then, I would say I've been more interested in building, parallel societies and other networks outside of the state. Um, and so I started the podcast with my buddy Penguin in, I guess it would be 2020, yeah, or maybe 2019. Been about 2 years. I think we're just no, so it was 2020. So we're coming up on 2 years, and so it's a podcast, yeah, about it's called Agora the Podcast. So obviously it's about agorism, but it's not necessarily like a introduction or a 101 course in agorist theory. We're trying to like further these ideas, and develop strategies and praxis around agorism and also other related theories and philosophies. We bring in lots of different guests that are doing lots of interesting things or developing different theories or what have you. So we try to sort of crystallize that and further these ideas in a bit of a concise synthesis, or so to speak. So it's really hard to describe what our podcast is about. It's just whatever we find interesting,
Yeah.
But uh, that's my story, I guess.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love that because I had Shane on from Liberty Under Attack. I know you and him have been connected for a little while, and we kind of got into a discussion about that as well. As like we kind of have to put the ideas out there and discuss like potential solutions and ways of operating outside of the system, creating the new parallel system, and it kind of takes a vision a little bit to say, okay, maybe we could do this, and this is a way that we can start being proactive. We can start cooperating on a larger scale, and getting a little bit better organized in different ways and testing out things. And I know you guys have done some cool stuff with that. Like I know you presented an idea to me a while back of having like people that are going around traveling, of being somewhat of a courier service where you could pick up items, and kind of be a courier to the next location. And just within basically our underground networks, making that happen. That was one of the ideas he talked about and presented to me a while back. Have you guys talked to is there's some other ones that you guys have been discussing about current events happening, and maybe ways of getting around certain things?
So that courier service, that's happening. It's currently a Telegram group, and it's been slowly growing. It's Vanarchy is the name of the Telegram group. So what people are delivering, I don't, and how many deliveries happen, I don't know, because it's a peer to peer situation. We don't have any knowledge of that sort of thing. So that's uh, a step in the right direction. What um, Shane Rayo is doing over at Vanu right now. He's setting up a Pasnian network, a map of sorts that I'm pretty interested in. Basically, it's a map of various, we'll say, enclaves or liberatory spaces, homesteads, maker spaces all throughout the country of like-minded individuals that you can, if you're traveling, stop there, etc., um, or buy certain things or whatever, or trade for certain things. And it's a good network of people that he's putting together that so you know where your allies are, essentially, if you're ever out and about and traveling. That's
That
very
is great.
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting to me. um Other than that, it's been a lot of sort of small ideas. Like recently, we just had a fellow on our podcast, Drew Cook, and he set up a harm reduction organization, a mutual aid organization in his local area, where they hand out Narcan and help people get get help if they're struggling with addiction. So it's, to me, it's I'm always interested in people out there doing something to put their ideas in, into works, into the into action, whatever that is. I'm interested in it. um I can't think of anything else.
Well, I'll make a comment on the network of folks around the country so that you can, be able to know where your allies are. I think that's super helpful because we did have some folks through the Freedom Cell Network contact us as they were traveling through town, and we were able to help them find a place through a member in the Freedom Cell to stay, so that they didn't have to go spend money for a hotel or whatever while they were driving through town. And people that want to move to our area, if they can connect with us on our Freedom Cell group chat, then they can kind of start talking to us, and we can start giving them ideas on, okay, maybe you guys can find this place in town. I got a buddy that he's renting out a place, and somebody within our network might have an idea of how to help them out and get them started with a job or something like that if they wanted to move to town. And so that's something that we've been doing, and that's kind of through some of my connections. And then we're also able to tell them how they can get local food from our area, the farms that they can go buy from directly, and things like that. So I think that's super important. Freedom Cells is only one part of that equation. And, the stuff that you're doing, SEK, and the stuff that Shane's doing, Rayo's doing with Vonu, and setting up, kind of a map for all that. Like, these are all resources, tools in our tool chest, so that people, we kind of have like an underground network, basically, to get
Yeah,
things
it's
to
basically
get
the
shit
same.
done.
Yeah. It's basically the same thing you're doing with your Freedom Cell, just scaled up to a larger network. So that's what we're going for. Really, is an entire alternative society or economy that exists outside of the state and the corporate supply chains, right? So if we have, I have a similar situation with my local Freedom Cell here, and as do you. And so if you picture that on a much larger scale, like throughout the nation or the world, then you have connections or vetted humans that are decent people who are of like mind, so you can get the things you need. Or maybe you need a place to stay for the night, or you're traveling through, or whatever, what have you. So this is something that I think is going to be very crucial in the coming years, um as things get worse, that I think needs to be set up now before we actually need it. Um, that, and also I think we need to, we as anarchists need to start focusing more on like mutual aid and support structures outside of the state, or even charities or large institutions, because I don't see things getting better in the short term, and the more we have these systems in place now, to help each other and people we know and those in need, the I think the better off we will all be, and the more it'll give us more of an ability to form, sort of carve out liberatory spaces, um, because it's real easy to control people when they're starving, if that makes sense. So if we have systems that can help people without the state, this is going to give us, it's like you said before, it's the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. If we can create that abundance and the help that people need, so they are not in a scarcity mindset, the less people will clamor for control in the future.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head exactly right there. It's about winning the hearts and minds, and the folks that are seeing the whole agenda rolling out, and if we can be proactive and have that abundance mindset and share the bounty of what we're growing and all that kind of stuff, it gets more. I think it's a better way to win people over than to get into some kind of discussion through the internet. Get into some debate with somebody on the internet. But if you're practicing what you preach and you're actually having some production yourself on your own piece of land, and you're able to kind of share in that bounty after you've been able to store back all you need for your family and take care of your needs, and then you've got a bumper crop and you're able to share with others. Number one, just being able to share some seeds from that crop you grew that season is a huge benefit if you can share those seeds around with other people that are around you in your neighborhood, because those are going to be more resilient. They're going to be more acclimated to your local environment. You've gained a friend in the neighborhood that knows that, like, I want to help this. This guy is helping everybody out, and you've gained, you've created a magnanimous relationship with them. And so they know, like, okay, well, if I need to know how to grow some food, I can go talk to this neighbor, and giving them some resources. And you're like, you know, through your example, you're kind of bringing people in that direction, especially as food prices go up, and people are trying to figure out how they're going to make enough money to be able to feed their family.
Yeah, just to kind of back up what you're saying, a realization I came to. So I was never really even on the internet until like 2013 or 14. So a large part of my anarchist, learning anarchist theory and reading and that was all like without the internet and without the sort of the shit show that is social media. So when I came onto social media, I thought I would be able to convince people with of my ideas with like logical arguments, and I probably did. But if you sit down and like think about like do a real cost benefit analysis, uh, the amount of time that you would have to spend on social media to actually convince, uh, well, everyone or a significant amount of people, could be better spent, um, by actually just going out and doing something, to further your ideas in the here and now, and couple that with the idea that I don't think most people will be convinced by arguments, and I don't mean that because they're stupid. I mean that because most people don't learn or aren't convinced by words. They have to see these things like in action, right? So, and I'm kind of that way also. So, uh, the way you're going to convince most people, I think, is actually changing the conditions, um, of the society. So, putting these ideas into practice to actually start doing things. And I think you'll, find that for the same amount of effort you would spend on social media convincing people, you will get a lot more benefit by actually just doing that. Because number one, you're getting the immediate benefit of whatever you're producing, but number two, you're actually convincing people also. So you're getting more bang for your buck, as it were. Now, speaking of the seeds thing, um, that reminds me of something that I've been trying to an initiative, we'll say, that I've been trying to do this year is trying to get more people guerrilla gardening.
Okay.
Um, so guerrilla gardening is,
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit?
yeah, just to define that, guerrilla gardening is gardening where you don't have permission to do so. So abandoned property, government property, let's see, public parks, that kind of thing. It's something I've been doing for a long time. Um, and I've been getting more back into it and trying. I've been teaching a lot of people about it and trying to get more. And I've got a number of volunteers, and I've gotten a lot of people into it. And then this coming, my thoughts are, and that this will create more abundance, um, and lessen lessen the reliance on sort of state and corporate supply chains, and hopefully feed some people and get a sort of vibrant ecology again, where food is kind of just growing wild instead of there being just grass and decorative plants everywhere. So what I've been doing, we do a lot of homeless outreach in our area, and a lot of feeding the homeless here. So we've been going around, and me and the family like to go exploring in the woods anyway. So we just been taking pockets full of seeds and planting seeds where I know that homeless people go by, and just planting food seeds and flowers and whatever else. And so there's just food growing wild. Food is actually relatively cheap and easy to produce. It takes a little bit of effort, but there's certain things that you can plant that will just kind of take over and grow wild, and you'll have food growing in your area, which could be a nice little stash spot for you, or somebody that really needs it can go pick it, or it just it spreads and there's food growing instead of just weeds. Now, another buddy of mine who's a nomadic fellow, um, he's host of the Road to Autonomy radio podcast, Silas Soul. Another, he's a nomadic fellow, and his idea was like, hey man, I'm like everywhere all over the country. I could be spreading seeds everywhere, and we could put that on Shane's map, and then you would also on this map know where there is food planted wild, so you could go forage. We could do a lot of foraging ourselves over here, but you could go forage for food if you're out and about, or plant some more seeds or tend to it. And you would also have this map. um, this map would also show where all of these guerrilla gardeners are. So this is how we this is how we create abundance. Like, yes, we grow our own food on our own land and do that, but also I like screwing with the concept of government property.
Yeah.
So I like planting food on government lands, especially since I'm also helping out the homeless, which they are terrible at doing. So it's to me it's another one of those things where it's there's multiple benefits for the same action. So that's what I've been getting into here recently this past fall.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. Do you have any suggestions on maybe some wild stuff that will proliferate well in the wild that you could plant? I'm thinking off the top of my head. I'm thinking I could take some cuttings of my fig tree and just start trying to
Yep.
plant them on the edges of some forest out on the public places in the city. And I know figs grow amazing in Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to look at what is sort of native to your area, because you want stuff that you don't have to maintain, right?
Yeah.
Well, figs, yeah, figs is a good choice. They grow wild in a lot of areas. Different varieties grow better in different areas, but but yeah, stuff like that grows wild. We have elderberry growing wild around here, blackberry. Um, find what's native to your area, and that will proliferate. self-propagate pretty easy. And but even stuff just like beans and peppers and tomatoes, um, they don't technically proliferate, but they will seed very easily. So the birds will probably help you plant those themselves, and you'll have like forests of bean plants, and they're pretty high in protein too. So they're like a good source of food if someone's going hungry. Aside from actual meat. Um, but just find out what my suggestion is always find out what grows native in your area already, or what grows easily, like you know, peppers, tomatoes, beans, all that stuff grows really easy. And the bean pods will just go to seed if they're not eaten and grow more plants. Um, but you want stuff that's going to you don't have to maintain and you don't have to go back. And generally speaking, I have gor- okay, so I have guerrilla garden in the sense of creating like huge garden plots before, but that might draw a lot of attention from authorities. So maybe you want to do more of a food forest method and sort of like sporadically plant things to where it's not a noticeable garden. It's just almost blends into the wild plants in the area already. Like you were saying, put some fig trees in the understory along the edge of a forest or something. It doesn't look like a garden there. There's just figs growing wild. That's kind of what you want to recreate if you if you're really like putting in a full above ground garden there. That's going to draw some attention probably from cops, and maybe even get you shut down.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from experience here, but um,
Yeah,
it,
that's what's a good strategy. Like where do you like to find places to plant? Are you looking at like beside roadways? Are you looking at like along the edges of like a lot of trees? Is there any specific places that you like to target and try to plant some stuff?
so my goal, one of my goals is to try to create food for the needy and homeless population in my area.
Okay.
So I've been trying to go. I mean, really, I carry seeds around everywhere, and I just plant them wherever I find a good spot. Regardless, whenever we're out hiking or whatever, I'm just planting food everywhere. But if I'm actually like going out with the intention of solely guerrilla gardening, it's usually trying to find places where I know homeless people hang out or congregate. So like this could be anything from like an abandoned lot, near down, we go to this place near downtown, the next city over from us, and there's a lot of homeless folks there, but there's also like walking trails in a creek, and a lot of people go from, uh, the needy folks go from downtown into this like kind of walking trail back in the woods. So I plant all over the city. I plant in flower pots outside of government buildings, in flower beds. Um,
I love that.
in abandoned buildings, and all along the mouth of this walking trail, and along the trail and stuff, and every honestly just everywhere we go. Um, Usually you're better off trying to find like on the edge of the woods, because then they aren't getting baked in the sun, but they're getting enough sun, whatever you're
Okay.
planting. Um, there's also like there's there's a what used to be a drug task force impound lot, and someone may or may not have been throwing a bunch of seeds in there as well. Um, there's
do,
all,
do you do those seed bombs? I remember reading a
yeah,
guerrilla gardening manual, and you make basically like a clay little ball, and then you put seeds in it, and then you can just toss them places.
yep. The seed bomb it's clay, peat moss, and seeds, and they're really easy and cheap to make. Um, I have done those; they work pretty well. Depending on what you are tossing, a lot of times you can just toss the seeds, especially if it's something that grows pretty easy, um, like beans. But
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah, you can seed bombs are a great method for doing that. Those are also much easier to throw out of a car as you're driving by.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Um, there's also a in the same city I was talking about. I live in a tiny ass little area. I'm in the sticks, but there's like what you would call a small city, like the next town over, and they have um, this like gated in area. It's the cops. It's I think it's the sheriff. I don't know, but they have a bear cat in this like um, this fenced in lot or whatever. So like right above this place is a railroad tracks, and you can walk along the railroad tracks. And if somebody hypothetically wanted to, you could throw a whole bunch of seeds in there, um, like cannabis seeds or something
Yeah.
inside cops inside this cop lot, where they got all their M wraps and stuff. So you could have a whole lot of fun with this as well. Like you could. I like pranks like that.
Oh,
So
that's a
not
beautiful
only
idea.
can you can it's kind of a fun hobby. I really enjoy doing this a lot, but
Oh man,
um,
that reminds me of a quote that I think Michael Malice talked about it with. I think it's Emma Goldman said, "I don't want to be part of a revolution where there's no dancing." And it's like, you got to have fun while you're doing this stuff.
exactly right. Yeah, yeah. So you can. I mean, yes, there's the practical reasons for doing this, but you could also have a whole lot of fun just screwing with the cops too. Just
Yeah.
eh, you know, um,
I love that idea.
it's fun. So that's I've been doing a lot of that lately, and I believe it or not, I've gotten probably dozens of volunteers, but people getting into doing this, and they're sending me videos all the time and stuff. So
Oh man,
it's been
that
a
does
whole lot
sound
of
like a lot
fun.
of fun. Yeah.
It really is. Plus, I don't know, like me and the family, we like being outdoors and hiking in the woods and stuff anyway. So it's like you just carry some seeds with you wherever you go, and we're out hiking or doing whatever, walking around, exploring, and you just plant seeds, just as you're walking along. So,
Awesome. I have one comment from Jack Dub um, in the chat here. He's saying spread the raspberry, mint, and cannabis seeds far and wide. And he also said that the dandelion leaf is very nutritious.
not just a leaf. We do a lot of dandelion greens and salads and stuff, but the root, the flower, and the stem. The dandelions is actually a super useful plant. Why we're trying to get rid of those, I'll never know. But dandelion root is a great medicinal herb. We do a lot of foraging here. Um, it has a ton of medicinal qualities for nausea and immune system and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, dandelions are super beneficial.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
Good. Oh, the mint thing. Yeah, careful where you're spreading mint because that stuff will take over everywhere. So yeah, if you want a plant that's going to take over an entire area, plant some mint. But that might not be a bad idea to plant in like a cop's impound lot or something. You know.
Yeah, yeah. At least they'll smell good. um, Speaking of that, so I know that you guys and your partner, she makes some tinctures and stuff. So uh, she's kind of a chemist, from what I can understand, and she can make all kinds of cool stuff. What are some products that you guys have and you guys are doing out on your homestead?
Yeah. So my lady, she's a wizard, man, like a real life wizard. And a couple of years back, she made a hard turn into getting into herbology and herbal medicine, plant based medicine, what have you. And so she makes a number of I don't know, salves and tinctures and creams and body butters and what else? Yeah. Oh yeah, tooth powders, stuff like that. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. Just and it's all from things we have either grown, foraged for, or traded for. And most of the stuff that we traded for is stuff like beeswax or tallow, um, stuff that we don't produce here. But most of the plants, which is the base of a lot of it, we either grow or forage for. And in addition to that, she's making a lot of different remedies and fire ciders. And right now, she's been making beef tallow body butter, which it's
Mm.
basically it's tallow, arnica, arnica or cannabis. She's got both, and I think a little bit of coconut oil, and it's whipped fine, and it's like good for skin and stuff. So I mean, she makes everything, dude. My house is like a weird, like wizard's laboratory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She makes homemade soaps. I'm literally looking at her shelf right now. I don't know. She's got jars and jars and jars of different mixes and different stuff, and it's all, man. You wouldn't believe like it actually works. You know what I mean? Like a lot of stuff you buy at the store, you're like, I don't really notice that, but just because she kind of makes it fresh from stuff we grew and it hasn't sat in a warehouse for months and months and whatever,
Yeah.
um, it actually works for a lot of different remedies that whatever we need already kind of grows from the earth, so it's just a matter of like putting it together in the um, right compounds, but yeah, she is an actual chemist, like she went to school for that, so she really like understands it at a molecular level.
Wow. Wow. How did you guys meet? How did you meet each other?
We met through anarchist circles online a while back. She was a fan of. She was a fan of. I was in some various groups and doing a lot of organizing, and she was a fan of what I was doing.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I always like hearing about how people meet each other, especially nowadays. It's like pretty hard. I'm a single guy, and I haven't I haven't tried that hard to go get myself out there, but I'm thinking about getting back out there and trying to do some dating and stuff. But yeah, it's I always try to ask people like how they met each other and how that worked out, especially nowadays.
it worked out awesome. We got a little 2-year-old together, 2-year-old daughter, who you saw her when she was a little, um, who's doing awesome. We got two unschooled girls here that neither one of them are going to school. Um, we're doing the unschooling thing, and yeah, you need to find yourself a nice anarchist lady. It's been awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, what you got going on sounds amazing. This is just finding somebody that would be into all that kind of stuff and making the products and all that kind of stuff would be super sweet. Um, so you mentioned the body butter. That's interesting. I recently heard that from somebody else through. I think it was Jack Spirko's podcast. They're making like a product like that using pig fat, and they're talking about the benefits of using fat
Yeah,
in the
it's
uh,
amazing.
skincare products.
Yep. So this is beef tallow, which is beef fat. So same idea.
Yeah.
It works awesome. I mean, I'm not usually one for putting stuff on, but if you got dry skin, it makes your skin feel like a baby. You know what I mean? It's pretty amazing at what it does. And she's got a lot of stuff too for like cuts and I own a landscaping company and I work outdoors with plants and I'm always getting cut up and shredded and whatever else just pricked and whatever. So she's got a bunch of stuff that that you use for putting on cuts or burns or whatever.
I
It
I
works
got uh,
awesome.
I got some of the muscle rub cream that she makes, and that stuff was amazing. I think it like helped out my back from working and kind of helped loosen things up for me. And that I love that product that she makes. I got to get some more.
Oh yeah, no, that stuff's awesome. I mean, I'm always freaking sore from working. You know, my job's pretty physical, so I'm always sore, and that stuff works awesome. Um, so yeah, it's actually I mean, I've always been into like sort of more natural remedies anyway, but the stuff she makes is like better than whatever the chemical alternative is that you get in in the store, and it's it's pretty, it's all natural, so you
Yeah,
actually know what you're getting. And no, I'm not just doing a sales pitch. It actually amazes like me sometimes how good like the plant-based stuff works in comparison to like whatever chemical the concoction the corporations are selling you
I
that you
mean, pharma
think
derives all their stuff from plants.
it's all plants. Yeah, yeah. They just synthesized all of it. So they're basically a simulation of the plants that already exist. They're like a facsimile. They're a copy of what already exists that's growing wild, probably right near you in your area. It's probably growing wild. You just got to go out and pick it and put it in a tincture or whatever, and you have what you need. But they're taking it and selling you a cheap copy. When you could just go out there and get it yourself for free.
Absolutely. So Jack Dub in the comments is saying old wives' tales herbs are good remedies, and pharma is mostly a garbage band aid, is what he's saying. And then he also said that I've heard rave reviews from CBD lotions and salves too. Uh, Topical application is a real thing.
Yeah. So she makes a body butter with that's infused with cannabis.
Oh, okay.
Um, it won't get you high, but it definitely works very well topically for like sore muscles and stuff. I think it's even better than probably better than the salve that you got.
Oh, okay.
Um, but it's good for the skin as well as pain, in sore muscles and stuff. So she puts that on me all the time. It's awesome. Um,
Now, you do something cool on your podcast that I find that is really awesome, and I'd like to start doing it myself a little bit. Instead of like running ads for like companies and stuff, you run ads for your friends that are making things
yeah.
or
Well,
people
I
you've
got
bought products from, and you
mhm.
vet their products and everything.
So I got one right now for my buddy Daggerist from Agorist Acres, who you
Yeah,
had on. Yeah,
I
yeah,
had him on the podcast. I like
yeah.
Dag.
That's right. I saw that episode. That was good. He donated a bunch of seeds to me for my guerrilla gardening project, so he's all in on that. So that's where I got an ad for him. And if anybody's interested in guerrilla gardening and you go see him at Agorist Acres, he'll hook you up sweet if you tell him I sent you. And then yeah, I mean I try to people that make stuff and that I actually use their products and stuff. I try to boost their signal. I got another one for my lady, obviously, but I got one for like we have patrons, and I get paid in beef jerky for someone being a
I
patron,
saw that. Is
which is
that
awesome.
Keto BJ on Twitter?
That's BJ. Yeah, Keto BJ. Shout out to BJ. She
I gotta get her on the podcast.
Yeah, she makes some pretty awesome ground beef jerky, which I was kind of leery of before I tried it. I'm like, ground beef? I never heard of that, but it's actually really good. Something about the ground beef, you can get the texture just right with the jerky. Um, so I've been buying her stuff for a while, and then she started paying me in jerky to be a patron, and then I've been running her ad also. So yeah, man, just people that I that's kind of the community that we've built up around our podcast is just like a community of like doers and producers, people that are actually doing stuff, and we kind of all stick together and help each other out and trade back and forth. Um, But yeah, that's the my lady was just saying that she's like I can't believe how awesome the community that like built up around the podcast has been. Just like just a solid lineup of like
Just
doers and makers. You know what I mean?
just people that are crushing.
Exactly right. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So now it's like, if we need something, it's like, well, we know a guy, we know somebody that does that here, and just hey, I got this. You want to trade for that? Okay, good. We just got our own little network going.
Absolutely. So I just dropped your link in the podcast and in the chat room there for folks to go ahead and subscribe to Agora the Podcast there, and it will also be in the show notes. But yeah, let's get back to I think a big part of kind of living the living agorism is actually having some kind of entrepreneurial enterprise that you're working on, and at least having that as a goal in your life. Like how did you get started with your business, like your landscaping business that you mentioned?
So this is the second time I started a landscaping company. So my father was a landscaper, and I grew up working for him when I was a little kid. So by the time I was like 18 or so, I already had a lot of skills under my belt. Um,
Okay.
you know, more than most grown men. I already knew how to do all that, so it didn't take me long to just. Honestly, I learned a lot of about running a business from selling weed as a teenager. So you just kind of learn
Right
like,
on.
it's customer service. It's putting a good product. It's being able to talk to people. It's being able to do quick math in your head, and knowing the value of what you have and what the person's willing to pay. So, and just kind of being like doing good business, like um, don't be shady. Do what you say you're going to do. Provide a good product, and don't cheat anybody.
Yeah.
So, so when I was about 18 or 9, by the time I was 24, I was running a business, making a couple 100,000 a year with my first landscaping company that I started when I was about 18 or 19.
Wow. Wow.
And it started out by just doing side jobs. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was working for another company, and I was doing side work on Saturdays, and then I picked up some mowing accounts, and it got at a certain point. It got to a point where I couldn't do both, so I just said screw it and struck out on my own. And I sold that business in 2012 because it actually grew too big, and
Oh wow.
it was just way too much for me to it
Manage
was
all of
too
it.
much. Yeah, it was too much. Man, I had like 6 or 7 crews. I had a production manager. It was too much going on. I was a workaholic back then.
Yeah.
So I sold that one, and I was like, I'm done with that. I just need something with less stress. And I was going through a divorce at the time too, so um, I needed a change. And then I was working for other people again, and I'm like, this is the same amount of stress and lack of freedom. I'm just not making this money anymore. You know what I mean? I'm making less money now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, so a couple of 3 years ago or so, I struck out on my own again, and I just built up another business again, and it just takes getting out there and doing quality work, and you got to beat down some doors sometimes, and if you do, show up, don't screw anybody, and do quality work, you'll never hurt for business. Um, so it's been
Okay.
pretty well. Honestly, like 3 months after I quit my job and struck out on my own, um, this past time, my lady comes to me and she says, "We've been trying to have a kid for like a year before that," and she says, "I'm pregnant." So like I just quit my job and taken this big risk, and uh, I was like, oh shit. I mean, I might not have done that if I knew there was, the baby was coming or whatever. But looking back at it now, being self-employed gave me the free, like I was able to go to every one of her doctor's appointments for the baby. I was, able to take off a solid month after the baby was born, month and a half. It gave me the freedom and the space to be able to do what I
S-
wanted
s-
for my family,
Be able to support your wife more.
Yep, to be there, because if I was working full time, they I don't think I'd been able to take, all those days off for every appointment and stuff, they would have gotten that would have been irritating. You're beholden to somebody else when you're working for somebody else. So when you're working for yourself, you can kind of dictate your own schedule to a certain degree, and I was able to do that and spend a lot of time when my daughter was born. So and I was able to keep the lights on and keep things paid, and we were fine. Um, and it's been great since then. I can, um, like I said, I got a lot more freedom, and I make more money than I would working for somebody else. So, and
Yeah.
honestly, so I guess it's legal now, so I can talk about this. But my father, the reason he started his landscaping business in the first place was as like a cover for his weed growing.
Nice.
So the reason so yeah, I didn't find out that out until I was much older. But yeah, I knew he grew weed my whole life, but uh, he didn't tell me that till like I had started my business the first time. He's like, the whole reason I started the business in the first place was just I was growing a lot of weed and selling it, and that gave me an excuse for buying and selling, or nobody's worried about you buying a bunch of like organic fertilizer, if you're a landscaper.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
it gave
see.
a source for the cash coming in, right? So he had a reason for why he was able to afford a house. So
Oh, okay.
the reason I
Yeah.
say all that is um, having a business allows me to do a lot of other sort of gray market side hustles.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
So um, I have a white market business, but that's also is a great cover for a lot of uh, other hobbies and like I said, gray market side hustles and whatever. And not to
Yeah.
get into that too much, but you can you can put a lot of your expenses into that business, if that makes sense.
Right.
So let's say you've got a business, hypothetically speaking, and um you buy a bunch of stuff and you're going to flip it and sell it as a cash side hustle. Well, you can put all those expenses on the books for your business and keep that cash from the side hustle, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like a tax shelter. It's what they call a tax shelter, where you can
Yeah.
put a lot of, because all those expenses are deductions on your business.
Right.
So that keeps down what your white market business is paying in taxes while you're doing a bunch of other little side hustles and what have you. Um, so like I have a homestead. We do a lot of farmers markets. She makes a lot of, tinctures and sells them and stuff. And I'm always doing some kind of side hustle over here, whether I'm, buying and selling this or that.
Yeah.
So a lot of it ends up being very like related in a sense, to where some of the expenses on the side hustles we have or the homestead easily look like supplies for a landscaping company.
I
You see where
gotcha.
I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Okay, so um, that goes on the books for my landscaping company, which keeps my taxes down. So then all the like a lot of the materials or whatever I need for my homestead or my side hustles or hers,
Yeah.
all those expenses just get written off on my taxes for the business. And
Status
then
jujitsu, man.
yeah, you got to find out what. So you know, something that we've gone over on the podcast a lot is like sometimes you have to you have to exist in the white market almost as a cover. or a
Yeah.
front for your gray market activities to kind of keep the authorities or the cops or the government off of your ass, so you have a little more space and room to do more sort of gray market activity or black market, what have you.
Yeah.
Um, so it gives you that front in a sense of legitimacy, and also like the problem my father had years ago is a lot of his business was from selling weed and it was all cash, so he couldn't get a loan for a house. Where
Yeah.
so now if you have a business and you're running a lot of that money through there, and you can claim whatever income you want to, and that gives you a little more freedom to buy property or um, make larger purchases or like I said, or just running cover for whatever else you're doing,
Hmm.
whatever side hustles you have.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, and I like what you said there about how you started. You just started. You had your day job, and you just started to pick up jobs on the weekend and got started that way. Now, did you do any advertising or anything, or was your advertising simply just word of mouth from doing doing good work for people?
Honestly, I have advertised and I never really noticed much from that. Primarily and it might be just the sort of the work I do or the industry I'm in, but a lot of it is word of mouth. Like the first time I started my business, I started with a pair of hand pruners and a barrel, and
Oh wow,
that's
yeah, that was the
all I
other
had.
question I was gonna ask. Was what equipment did you start with?
That's what I started with, is just doing I was just doing pruning, like pruning shrubs and bushes and stuff, and small trees. I've always been really good at pruning. So I started with that, and all I had was a $20 set of hand pruners and a barrel, and that was it. And then from there, I bought myself a pickup truck, um, and then bought some mowers later on. But I built it up, and just started doing side work. And you know, when you start to blow up, it feels slow at first. It's always slow. It's always going to be slow your first year. But when you start to really blow up is sort of when you get referrals from referrals. So like
Oh, okay.
you do work from somebody and then you do really good work and they refer you to somebody else. But then when it starts to grow exponentially is that person that they referred to somebody else starts referring to their friends also. And if
It's literally going viral.
it's pretty much going viral, and then all of a sudden you're like you're getting all these calls and people are it's just it blows up, and it takes time to build up that reputation. So your first year at least doing landscaping is going to be slow. There's just no way around that.
It's just doing the work, doing a good job, building the
Yep.
reputation.
Yep. I mean, I have dropped flyers off on doors. I guess you could consider that advertising.
Yeah.
um, I have definitely done that. If there's a neighborhood I want to get my foot into, I'll go canvas the whole neighborhood and put my business card in all their doors. So I have done that. I guess that's kind of advertising, but any I have paid for advertising before, and I've never noticed any kind of return from that. So I don't pay for advertising now. Um, Go ahead.
I think that's brilliant. A landscaping business of some kind, um, and then just for permaculture, if you're doing homesteading or anything permaculture, anything that you're taking off of somebody else's land through landscaping, you can help bring onto your land to compost and start building your soil up and making your soil better and making everything just enhanced even more on your own property.
Oh yeah, I'm always bringing home plants and leftover dirt or compostable material or all kinds of stuff that people will pay me to haul away, and then I'll just use it here, um, or if it's like I got end up with a bunch of extra plants, I'll give some away or what have you, or plant some here. Um, Something I have been trying to get more into, and I do a little bit of it, but it's not. Um, it's a very small niche of my clientele is getting more into like building food forest and permaculture and homesteads, and I've been doing quite a little of that. I've got a number of customers that I'm like building homesteads and putting in food forest for.
Oh, wow.
So that's fun. I would like to do a lot more of that, but it's not my primary clientele. I guess it's not the majority of my work right now.
Yeah.
Um, Majority of my work is putting in pretty formal landscaping for rich folks. That's where most of my money comes from.
Yeah. Well, we've been attending our Freedom Cell group. We've been attending the Self Reliance Festival in Camden, Tennessee. Um, I think we went to like the first four of the events, and Billy Bond has come to one of the last ones we went to, and he gave a really good talk on how you can get free chicken feed from local universities and public schools and restaurants by going into those places with like a shirt with your like business logo on it or something like that, and like a polo shirt or something nice, and saying like compost creators or something along those lines, and approaching them about you want to do your part to save the planet, and you want to build soil, so if they have any food scraps, then you can take it off their hands, and take care of it, help build soil. And he's been successful doing that. And it was funny in the presentation. He's a black dude, and he said, if you got to go hire your local black person and bring them along with you, because that's just kind of the world we live in now. Is like people want to give stuff to minorities and stuff like that. So he threw that out, and everybody laughed, and it was pretty hilarious in my mind.
That's great. I love that kind of stuff. I love turning like waste streams into something useful. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
my jam. I do a lot of scavenging, and just finding like free stuff or people that are throwing stuff away that you can use. That's right up my alley, especially like food scraps and whatever, so you can feed it to your chickens or throw it in your compost or whatever it is.
The amount of waste is incredible. We had one of the folks on the blog through Hive, what was formerly Steam It. He would go around his community and just dumpster dive, and the stuff people were throwing out on the street, turn around, put it in his little apartment or whatever, turn around and sell it. And like that, he made a living doing that. There's just so much waste in our society. It's incredible.
Oh, dude, we waste way too much. I mean, we could feed the entire planet with just what we throw away. It's disgusting. And if it wouldn't take very much to make use of a lot of that waste in some way or another. You and I are both pretty big fans of Carl Hess and the book Community Technology, and you can very quickly imagine how we could, change our societal structure and our economy and our, sort of our relationship to production in a way that was like much more ecological, I guess, but also just less wasteful. A lot of the stuff that we throw away could be reused and repurposed. I mean, even food waste. We could be feeding all this to our hogs or whatever, just setting up the waste streams. But a lot of times, this is actually like illegal to do. Um, uh, Not so much with the hogs, but there's legal liability around giving away a lot of this food.
Yeah.
People get
That
arrested
that
for that all the time. So,
that was the caveat that he said. Don't mention anything about feeding it to animals. It's going, in the soil. It's not going to be touched by any animal or any human. It's just simply going into the soil. And that's why he said to present yourself, professionally, so that you're just not some, dude off the street that's, starving, looking for some food to get out of the dumpster or whatever for themselves. Like, make yourself look like a professional operation, and you know, um, do what you can. Use the whole you know sustainable agenda. Use it to your advantage. And because this is especially at universities, they're all for that stuff, saving the planet, everything like that. I remember I did work for academia there for a little while for the University of Alabama in Huntsville, and they had a whole like sustainability guy on their campus, and like how can we make things more ecologically safe and better and things like that. And they're always I think they're always looking for some kind of way to do that because it makes their ESG scores look good or whatever.
So it sounds like your buddy is actually going for like actual sustainability, not some sort of like UN corporate slogan, about
Abundance,
sustainability.
permaculture, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
he's doing permaculture.
Yeah, exactly. And that to me is more sustainable than anything that, Agenda 2030 is proposing, is actually on a very peer-to-peer level going to find these waste streams and making use of it and building permaculture on your own property. That to me is more ecologically sound than these people that, trusting your local WEF or whatever, or who are driving around in private jets. If you're concerned with the environment, as I am, it's going to have to happen locally on an individual level, and it starts with like kind of producing our own food, but also finding uses for a lot of our waste and the stuff we throw away, and just not being a consumer. Um, Derek Bros and I talked about this one other time because we're both kind of, greeny and environmentalist types, right? We're both very into permaculture also, but it seems like the corporatists or whoever you want to call them seem to take like these ideas and invert them or use them for their own agendas, right? So you take something that should be like a decent idea, like we want things to be a sustainable system. Permaculture is a sustainable system. It requires very little inputs. It's ideally a closed system where it runs on its own and regenerates itself, right? That's what sustainable means. But they take it to mean like, oh no, you're going to be paying our corporate friends like carbon tax, and that's what we're going to call it sustainable. And they
Right.
just like invert this to mean something like totally different, right? Where they take like what might be a decent idea and they use it for own their own agenda or corporate branding or whatever, so these people can fly around on private jets and have
Virtue
drinks and
signal to everybody
yeah.
that they're such great people.
Well, while they're smoking cigars and making business deals, and they feel like they're doing something when they're not. They're not really. It's not really doing anything. Like I said, change has to happen on a sort of a local level. Um,
Absolutely. And I constantly do preach that to people is that I try to in my own life is that nobody's coming to save you. You got to save yourself. Like stop looking for these people that are going to be your hero that is going to somehow magically show up in your life that they're going to solve all the problems for you, like trust the plan. It's like you got to be the plan. You got to take the actions. You got to be the change that you want to see. Nobody's coming here to help you out. Like you got to make these things happen through your will and imagining a better future for yourself first, and then creating a community around you, I think.
yeah, and it just starts with small steps. Um, Small actions have um, a lot more impact than you might think. It takes a lot of small actions. There's it's kind of cheesy, but there's the butterfly effect, right? Where if you go back in time and you kill a butterfly, it can drastically alter the future. Well, the same is true about like your decisions right now in the present. Your decisions, however small, right now will drastically affect the future. Just same as killing that butterfly, right? Because
Right.
the present is the past of the future, right? You see what I'm saying? So it's the small actions that you're taking now will slowly build into something more over time, right?
Right.
And you're right, no one is coming. There's the old proverb. It's if you see Buddha on the road, kill him. And the what they mean by that is nobody is going to nobody should be in charge of your own enlightenment.
Hmm.
At least what they mean by that proverb. There's nobody in between you and enlightenment. So what we can take to learn from that is there is no person that is going to be in charge of your freedom or your liberation or your betterment or empowerment or autonomy. Use whatever word you like. And you actually don't want somebody that to be in that role, because if you if even if there was somebody coming to save you, them being able to grant you freedom is also granting a lot of control over you by that person. And that's how cults happen. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's how gurus or whatever happen. So you don't even want, even if there was somebody coming to save you, you don't want that person. You want it to become from you. So you have all the autonomy that will grant you by doing it yourself. And if you allow somebody else to do it for you, it's going to grant them a lot of control over your life and your improvement and your path forward.
Right. And speaking of that, we probably got one of your listeners in the YouTube chat. Sean Bromilla says, I've been doing a bit of guerrilla gardening with mycelium this year with the expectation they drop spores for the future. So we got a fellow guerrilla gardener here in the chat.
Awesome. Sean, can I ask you what kind of mushroom? We'll wait.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if he's still listening,
Oh yeah.
but yeah,
Hold on.
Sean, if you're still hanging out listening, what kind of mushrooms are you growing?
Um,
Um,
Go ahead.
so that kind of leads into something we were chatting about before the show, which was that it goes along the lines of what we were just talking about. Do a little bit of a soft segue into this topic, but we were talking about uh, you you're not gonna really change people's minds through maybe starting an argument online or whatever, but the change has got to come through people's individual actions, just like you were saying. Those actions that you're taking now, those choices that you're making now, have a great effect on the future, because those things can compound themselves going into the future. So one of the things that you said that was pretty good was the individual mind shift of becoming, instead of being a consumer, or like just consuming most of everything that you have, to shifting towards becoming more of a producer. Could you maybe explain a little bit more about your thoughts on that?
Sure. So, let's see. What did I say? So, I don't think most people are going to be convinced by arguments. I think they're going to be convinced by actions. So, the biggest move we can make as um, anarchists is switching from being more of a consumer to being more of a producer. Now, trade, gray market trade, this is also important. But what I think is almost more important is changing our relationship with production and becoming more of a producer. Now, um, this to me, and I'm drawing a lot from Carl Hess here, would provide what's called the material base for a free society. I don't think most people are going to be convinced by logical arguments or a philosophical change of heart. I think most people are going to be convinced by things practically working, seeing these things work in action. And so the more we produce for ourselves, the less we are, number one, the less we are granting other institutions control over the things that we need, like corporations, the state, etc. We are producing these more closely, which means we have more of a direct impact on how these things are done. And so the more we as humans have a direct impact on the how these things are done, the more control we have over our own lives. Follow me so far?
Yeah.
So this would create the material conditions for us building a free society is actually being more of a producer and keeping production more at a local level rather than production and technology existing to sort of serve large institutions like corporations or the state or think tanks or whatever the thing is. So it will be more receptive to the needs of the people that are involved, whatever that thing is, whether that's gun manufacturing or food or clothing or music content, whatever that thing is. Um, we as humans would have more direct control over this. And now, once this sort of shift takes place, people will directly see the benefits of this type of societal arrangement. And so it doesn't matter how much or little Rothbard or Hess or pick your favorite anarchist thinker they've read, it doesn't really matter. They're making the switch because they see that it materially benefits them and works better, if that makes sense. And to me, this is almost more of a convincing situation than spouting off, theory on the internet. You know what I mean? Or whatever the thing is, or trying to convince people because this political theorist said XYZ thing and that's why you should be convinced of my ideas. It's actually showing them in your own community how this type of social arrangement would be more beneficial for all of us, right? So it's a bit of a utilitarian argument, but it's mostly just a practical thing for me rather than utilitarian argument, right? It's
Yeah.
the to me the most effective way to convince people while also benefiting yourself and also building this material base I was speaking of for a free society.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. I'll give everybody an example of that. So this Christmas, I instead of going out and shopping to find gifts, I had recently invested in a nice 3D printer. So instead of going out and buying the gifts, I simply just printed some. Sorry, a little bit of cough there. Just printed some for my niece and my family, and was able to cut out going and getting involved in the crazy consumerism out there. Giving my money to these corporations that are all into this ESG crap and all that stuff. And so, right now, even though things are tightening, it seems like the grip is tightening on humanity and locking things down in the normal economy, the above board economy, that we have a lot of technology and tools at our disposal now that would allow, somebody, I would probably have to make a clay model or something like that, build an injection mold, all that kind of stuff. And now I got a machine that can do that while I'm sleeping and does it very well, pretty accurately, to build stuff like that. One of the guys that's in the chat right now, Jack, he just recently made a post of creating something useful with his 3D printer that he needed for his hydroponic system. He created his own little T-split for some hoses for his hydroponic system. And there's plenty of examples of stuff like that, especially if you're a homesteader, want to be more self-reliant, things like that. These little parts that you would have to go down to the hardware store and spend the gas to, get down there. You spend cents in plastic to put through your 3D printer, and now you have a part that you can use for a replacement or a part that you needed for some plumbing or some kind of fitting that broke down or, repairs and stuff that you would otherwise have to purchase.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we made a bunch of presents here for most of the people. We tried to buy as little as possible, but you're right. You're getting to a point where like even a relatively poor farmer can afford a 3D printer to print parts for whatever hydraulic hose or fitting or whatever the thing or something for his irrigation. The machinery is becoming much cheaper to acquire, which is good news for a lot of reasons. Mostly, it kind of dovetails to what I was just talking about in the sense that it becomes much easier to produce things and cheaper to produce things yourself, or you and a couple of neighbors, or your local community. It's very much easier to buy these machines and just start printing them yourself, and you don't have to rely on the like you said, the above ground economy or the corporate supply chains or any of that. You can just print it yourself, or you got a buddy that is machines the X, Y, or Z thing, and you just kind of work out a whole little system of barter amongst yourselves. And um, the more these things come down in price, and the more easier they are to sort of learn and use, the more this is going to be the case. I have to believe that it seems to be the general trend. And I think more and more people are becoming more interested in sort of DIY projects and building things themselves as a hobby even. So I think that's the direction we're heading. And again, not because there's been any kind of like philosophical shift in people's minds. It's just becoming easier to do it. So more people are doing it. You know what I mean? Or cheaper to do it, so or more convenient to do it. So more people are doing it. And that to me is a good sign, I think. So
Yeah, and there's a lot more tools available to everyone now. If you want to pick up a new hobby or a new skill, it's easy to go find a YouTube video on it, and find somebody that's knowledgeable in that subject and just study from them, or find a forum that you could go look into that's people are specifically doing that kind of stuff. The online education market is going to be like a huge boom. It already is. I know personally, I've taken courses from Dr. Andrew Kaufman on how to do like a detox protocol. I've taken courses from this guy. His name is Alosha. And he shows you how to do, he calls it biotexture. So it's like, he's like earth bag construction and like local material construction. I've taken courses from him. I've taken courses from people that do permaculture stuff. Online workshops and online education is going to be huge in the coming years, I think. And like, if you can do any of that kind of stuff now, I think it's like super cool. To maybe start building a reputation, especially if you're a younger guy. I think I was listening to some podcasts a little while ago saying that like spend your 20s like building a reputation for something for yourself, and then that kind of helps you in the later parts of your life. Something I wish I had done in my earlier years.
or yeah, reputation and skills, I would say, throughout your 20s is key. Um, but yeah, you can learn whatever you want on YouTube right now. Yeah, and you're right. It's only going to go more and more in that direction, to where there's really like no excuse to not, whatever the thing is that you want to do, whether it's just a hobby or making something, or learning a new skill, or finding something fun to do. You can learn it, and there's you know expert level courses on all of this. You can spend hours and hours and hours learning how to do this. It's mostly, I think, for a lot of people, it's sort of overcoming that fear of fucking it up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
learning something new. They're like, oh, I'm scared to try it. I'm gonna screw it up or whatever. It's gonna be hard to learn. And I mean, yes, all of those things are true, and you have to screw it up and screw it up until you learn how not to screw it up, and then you get good. And it's just like you can find all the information is out there. on whatever subject you want to learn or whatever hobby or skill you want to learn. It's out there right now for mostly for free. So yeah, you can pay for some courses for more one-on-one stuff or whatever, but most of the stuff you can just sort of trial and error and learn how to do at home. And I don't know, my lady has a podcast with a friend of ours, and they just go over. They basically learn a new skill, and then they go over it on the next episode and say, "Hey, this is what we screwed up on, and this is what we learned, and this is how to do it, and whatever else." And you can definitely try it too, and it's awesome. There needs to be more of that, I think, because I think people need to realize, like, whatever skill you're going to learn, you're going to suck at it and you're going to screw it up, and it's fine. Like, that's just how it goes. You can learn all you want from videos and lectures or whatever, but you really just have to like do it, like you have to go do it and screw it up a couple of times and figure out what you did wrong, and then do it the right, figure out how to fix that, and then you get good at something. And most of at least a lot of the skills that and hobbies that I have, it's a lot of hands-on stuff. So you can learn a great deal on the internet or whatever, but you actually have to just go do it at some point.
Yeah, yeah. One example is one of the guys in our community is handle is Normok, and he was able to trade weekends and some beers with a friend of his to teach him how to weld. And he turned that skill into going up to the Dakotas to go work in the natural gas industry and make some good money for himself just by a free education from a friend that had some time and wanted to, hang out, and he was able to show him a skill and was able to leverage that into, you know, some work that provided, a good source of income from him, so he could build a nice future for himself. And he's used that to, I think he's got his own little homestead going on up there in the Dakotas, and got a nice little place that he's built for himself up there. And actually, another person from our community, Rondon, was able to go up there and help him out and help do that. And but yeah, it's different things like that. I think Curtis Stone has talked about it as social capital is another form of wealth. Who do you know? Who can you learn from? What can you do? And that's something that we've been doing at our local Freedom Cell meetups. We do them like once a month, and we've been attempting to each month try to bring in somebody that can, at least give you like an introduction to a new skill, and talk about that as a group.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's what freedom cells are supposed to be. And that thing with your buddy trading out for bartering for learning a skill, that's awesome. That's the stuff I love to see, man. And just kind of making something from nothing and turning it into like a marketable skill, so he can benefit himself or do better for himself. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of I think it's the education system that's really kind of left people without creativity, because I've heard Curtis Stone. He was a broke guy. He was in a band, and he just said, I started urban farming because I was able to make deals with people in his neighborhood to farm on their lawns. And he grew that into a thriving business for himself. And he didn't have the money at the time, or couldn't get the loans because he didn't have a good standing with the banks, and wasn't making very much. And he built that by putting into the work and thinking creatively, instead of a lot of people I talk to that are you would probably classify as a normie person. They come against a wall, it seems, in their thinking, where it's like, well, it doesn't fit into this, way that I've been taught to go get your 9 to 5 job and, make the money and stay with a company. And maybe I move to a different company, but I'll never really get ahead there, and I'll just be doing the same thing over and over and over. That's the only way. Like, you can't, there's no inkling of another possibility in their mind. Like, I don't have the resources, I don't have the time, I don't have the capabilities. Just excuse after excuse, and it just seems to come to this dead end. Whereas, like, the folks that maybe have pushed back a little bit against that system, thinking a little bit differently, they're just trying to be creative. Like, how can I make this? How can I turn this into this? How can I make this? Create the abundance. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, what you're describing is sort of people were sold the American dream, and the thing is it was like it was kind of always a lie, and I think that's becoming more apparent to most people is like, and I think COVID had a little bit to do with this. It was like, wait a minute, why do I go sit in a cubicle 40 hours a week and sit in traffic and drive back and forth and all this kind of stuff? Like with all that COVID stuff, people were working from home, and they're like, no, I can just do this from home. I can do this from anywhere on the planet. I don't have to go into the office. Obviously, I've been home for the past 6 months or a year, and it's been fine. So, and some people got laid off or lost their jobs, and they had to go figure out something more creative or downsize or, go drag a tiny home onto a piece of land in the country for cheap or whatever, and just find another way of doing it. And I think the sort of the illusion of the American dream is falling away, and people are looking for more creative ways to make income or make a livelihood for themselves, and whether that's like sort of minimalism or a more nomadic lifestyle, or just finding remote work, kind of freelance, so you can go live out in the country for cheap to keep your costs down, or just finding like a series of. I mean, I know people that just live on like a series of different hustles, whereas like between these three or four different things that they're doing to make money, they keep the bills paid, and it's fine. They like what they do, and I think more people are starting to reevaluate, their relation, like what is life really about? Am I going to work just to go to work, just to go to sleep, to fucking watch Netflix, to put gas in the car, to go back to work and sit in my cubicle and waste the next 40 years of my life? Or am I going to find out what I really would like to do with my life, and try to figure out a way to make money doing that, or just not getting your soul sucked out working in some cubicle under like fluorescent lights, So I think people are starting to like change the way they think about these things a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I have seen people that are totally bought into the system, you know, attempting to do stuff for themselves and build something that they can do on the side. One example that I can think of is I have a buddy that he was exactly like you're talking about, is a guy that found himself working from home a lot, and even before the lockdowns, all that stuff happened where everybody went to remote work. He had started a little side thing, getting into like these cheap CNC mills and doing some 3D printing stuff, and he turned that into that hobby. Uh, which was, it just started off with some woodworking on a CNC mill, making little putter things for disc golf because he's super into disc golf. And he turned that into an Etsy store and started making those things. And then that turned into other products that he was making, and started a whole little wood shop with his little CNC mill where he can do custom engraving on different products that he made. And he found a good product, which was like these tequila boards that he sold just before the holidays, where it had the spot for your glass and a place to put the salt for your put salting the rim of the glass, and then little spaces for little tequila things, and would do custom messages in it and everything. And he actually was able to make a pretty good chunk of change through his little Etsy shop, and still running it, still very successful, 5-star reviews on all of his products and everything. And all while he does his day job, he can fulfill those orders and stuff in the spare hours of the day and keep his little CNC robots making him money while he sleeps, basically.
Yeah. So imagine, so say your buddy, he didn't want to work for his day job anymore. All it would really take is just, maybe two or three other little side hustles to keep steady money coming in. And he would probably end up working a lot less. He'd do a lot of his, printing or milling or whatnot, but, find a couple other avenues of revenue. And that would be more than enough to cover what he's making off his day job. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Probably for a lot less time. And like you said, it's the machines are running while he's sleeping. You know what I mean? So he's got a lot more time to do what he wants, and he's making decent money, and he's doing something he likes. I think I hope more people have the opportunity to just take that jump and find out what it is that you want to do, and do that, and not work some shit job you hate. There's a hustle out there for you. Anybody can do it. You just got to find out what that is and develop a little bit of skill. And maybe it takes you a couple different hustles to make the ends meet or whatever. But um it's pretty doable. It's really not that hard, and it's going to start with like how your buddy's doing it, where you're doing it and working a full job, and it's kind of sucks for a little bit, but it's that's how you make the transition.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier about how your wife and their podcast, I think it's called "Let's Make Some Shit" or something like that. I
Yeah,
think
that's
for
it. Let's make some shit.
the
Yeah.
last time I saw it on Twitter, and what I do love about what you explained there is that they are sharing what worked and what didn't work, and their experiences, and I think that is like you're saying, it is a hurdle for a lot of people. It's like, are people gonna judge me on this thing that I'm making and it doesn't turn out very good and all that kind of stuff? But like you said, you don't learn until you do try something and you're not so good at it. And just like when you learned how to walk as a child, you don't just try to take your first steps and fall and cry and then never try to take any steps again. You just keep going. So I that's something that I like to share as well, is like, you're gonna look like an idiot, you're gonna look weird, you're gonna look awkward in the beginning. Especially doing my podcast here, I was super awkward. Um, and just getting on the air and talking, and even having to do the solo shows. Like, how do I come up with a show? How do I put this together? How do I look? How do I make my screen look and everything like that? And you just spend the time and dig into the information. There's plenty of stuff online to teach you, and I learned a lot from the Rondon that's here in the chat right now. That he helped me with technical issues on with OBS and everything like that. And you just start learning as you go, and kind of trial by fire is the best way, I think, for you to learn stuff. Get thrown into the cage with the wolves and so, throw it in the ocean. It's kind of sink or swim. See how you do it, and continue to get better over time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the thing I like about their show is, like, so you can go learn a whole bunch of different skills on YouTube, but you're usually learning skills from people who have already somewhat mastered that skill, right? So you don't get to see how they screwed up in the beginning. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't get to
Right.
see their fuck ups in the beginning. So for some people, I think that can be sort of intimidating for them to make that leap to try it themselves, because they're like, they're not seeing like this, that the way this dude got here or this person got there is they screwed up a whole bunch and got good at it, right? So but now you're seeing sort of the finished product of where that person has already mastered that skill. So the newbie, the person that's never tried it before, they're like, well, I can't do that. That he makes it look amazing. I can never do that. And so having like a podcast like my ladies, now they're very skilled at several things, and they teach that kind of stuff too, but they'll try new stuff and be like, yeah, we tried this is this whole batch or whatever got fucked up, and we don't know what we did. I think it was this. We're gonna adjust this or whatever the thing, and like try it out differently this time. And you get to see a like a you know sort of a beginner's mind, almost like a them trying to do it like just like a regular person trying something new. That you get to see the process, and I think that's important in making more people comfortable with like just making a leap to try something new or learn something new. Just getting over that initial hurdle of I'm gonna fuck this up, and yes, you are. That's gonna happen, but it's totally fine. Like just try it again. That's how you get good. So
Yeah, yeah, and so the whole reason I got into doing the podcast and everything was because I started a blog, what was originally Steam It, and forked into the Hive blog now, and the whole community here. I started doing that and just sharing the things that I was learning and going through, and I kind of always had in my head uh, that it would be good to document some of these projects that I was working on, and write them out in kind of an instructional format, so that it's basically the ethos of open source. I created this thing and here's the instruction set. Now take my thing and make it better. And it's that philosophy, I guess, of the open source philosophy, which does cause a lot of innovation to happen, I believe. Where you would have like a team at a company doing research and development, and all these resources are getting poured into that research and development. And well, now you have the entire minds of just distributed across the internet that can look at this one research and development project and go a ton of different ways with it and iterate the design and make changes and do all kinds of different tweaks and stuff with that, and really push the technology further and further ahead, like faster than any one team could do inside of a company.
yeah, no, it's crowdsourcing knowledge. It's I think that's responsible for a lot of the innovation that we see, and absent sort of this regime of intellectual property, we would see a lot more of that, and we could be so much further than we are now. But no, that's peer to peer learning. That's my favorite thing, and it also sort of whittles away the what they call the cult of the expert, right? Where it's like, no, anybody can kind of learn this, and we can kind of learn from each other and learn from each other's mistakes or improve on other people's work, and we don't necessarily need institutions of experts to dictate to us what is good, what works and what is truth, or what is the best method for whatever the thing. We can find this information ourselves, and it's with these days it's easier than it ever has been in human history. So um, yeah, no, I'm with you on the open source thing.
Absolutely. So, talking about just some other stuff that's going on. 2022 has been kind of a crazy year in the world, and lots of chaos, it seems, and the chaos will continue into the future, I believe. What are some things that you've got planned for next year? Maybe some things that you'd like to get accomplished, some goals of yours.
Oh, well, simple stuff. We talked about the guerrilla gardening. I'm doing a lot of that this coming year. We're going to do some more homeless outreach. Trying to expand the business all the time. But it's the stuff around the homestead. I'm always expanding everything a little bit every year. So I'm going to build a bigger chicken run over the winter. I'm going to extend the gardens a little bit. Um, I'm planting a lot more trees. This last fall and this coming spring. Um, it's a war of inches on the homestead. I'm just expanding what I already have. I'm not building anything new necessarily, but just expanding what I already have just a little bit more, and I do that every year. So um, that's about it.
Okay. What type of trees are you looking to plant? You have any kind of like more fruit trees or
Mostly fruit trees. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
I've been trying my hand at um, learning how to propagate from cuttings. I've been doing a lot more of that, trying my hand at that. So we've been propagating elderberries and figs and blackberries and stuff like that, just from cuttings that we've either trimmed here at the homestead or trimmed, in our foraging. Um, so it's just been I've been doing that's my newest skill, I guess. I've been trying to pick up get better at this year. And so I've been doing more of that, and I probably end up incorporating some of that into the guerrilla gardening, and yeah, I don't know. That's and the usual homestead stuff. We got a whole lot of planting to do and what have you over this next year, and then I come into my busy season with the business, and so I would just be wide open all year. So
Okay. What type of food forest do you have? Can you, like approximately like are you doing the zone type thing with permaculture, or are you doing like rows like silvopasture or
oh no, it's more like guilds, so more like zones, like permaculture. There's already an existing. So like one of them I'm building for a customer of mine, they already have like existing woods, so they already have the the tall over canopy. So it's just a matter of right now I'm sort of putting in what they call understory and building like smaller guilds of things that like to be under canopy, and building up some hugelkultur beds from some fallen trees that are there, and getting a decent compost system set up for them, and just kind of a lot of that stuff, introducing some um, native plants and vines to the area, and just working with what's already there mostly. um, so no, not like rows like a forest like that, and more just making making
kind of your different zones and adding a guilds of
yeah, making
beneficial
it work
plants
with
that
whatever was
work in synergy with
yes, exactly right.
those systems.
Yeah, adding into like sort of the existing ecosystem that's already there. So yeah, trying to just tailor it more towards having more edible plants.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things that I picked up from a podcast recently. Nick Ferguson. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he did a really good rundown on the systems that he's created for himself in using these fodder trees. They're like trees like hybrid willow, a hybrid poplar, and white mulberry. And you can use those for feed, especially for rabbits, as a supplemental feed source for rabbits. And he's got this whole nice little inter-operating system where the rabbit poop falls into a compost system, and you can create like black soldier fly larvae out of that, or have vermicomposting happening in there that helps break down all the stuff in the rabbit poop and everything. And he's turning around and then using that as some feed for his chickens, and also creating soil with the chickens and the composting system. And so it's all kind of like everything can be used on his own piece of land to help increase and continue the abundance in the systems. Um, are you guys doing any kind of stuff with livestock? You guys got some livestock going with your farming efforts?
just chickens. No real livestock. We also our chickens eat a lot of our scraps, so we try to create our own like sort of a closed system in that sense. Feed them the scraps from our veggies and the plants from the garden and whatnot, and then the chicken poop, all that kind of just goes into either our compost or into the gardens. We also have like a worm composting set up here, so a lot of the I've got uh, 5 or 6 different ways to compost things around here. My chickens do it for me. We have a bunch of worm bins that we add some stuff to there, and I've got a series of compost bins for different stages of decomposition. So we make a lot of use of um, our waste, or at least our organic waste, um, around here. It all ends up back in the garden at some point.
Wow. So yeah, he was also explaining in there like a couple of different ways of making money. You know, having these systems where he was talking about selling. You know, you can sell the worms as bait.
Yep.
For fishermen, and then also he was talking about there's one type of cockroach that you can raise, and these people that grow have bearded dragons as pets have to buy these cockroaches to feed to their bearded dragons, and these cockroaches are like all sold out a lot of times. And so he was saying, you know, if you find something like that that's sold out, you know, there's money to be made there because the market's not, you know, the demand is not being met in the market, and they can't keep up with the demand. So you know, interesting stuff like that. If you can stomach, you know, messing with cockroaches, you know,
Right.
there's opportunities there. I know a lot of people don't like
Yeah,
messing with
that,
those.
or mealworms, or even like black soldier flies, like you mentioned. Like all of those are there's money to be made in selling those as well, and also mealworms make good feed for your chickens if you got a bunch of them, or and there's lots of little things that you can do that have use on your homestead, as well as also being a source of revenue. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I would do cockroaches, just because,
They're weird, man.
well, they're weird, and if you end up not selling them, there's not much else you can. I guess you could feed them to your chickens; they'd probably eat them.
Yeah.
But if you were doing like mealworms, or regular worms, or what have you, and you ended up having a bunch that you didn't sell, I can always feed them to my chickens. You know what I mean? Or
Yep.
throw them in the compost bin, or whatever. So
Or if you
it's
had a
always.
little pond, you could throw it in the pond to the fish, feed some
Yep.
fish with it.
Feed the fish. Exactly right. So yeah, it's not. I like having things that have a bunch of uses.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, stacking functions.
yeah, exactly right. So I haven't tried to sell the my surplus worms, because I'm always like, "Oh, I can always use more worms." So if I get too many in my worm composting system, I just end up throwing them in my garden, or feed them to the chickens or whatever. I don't Whatever I would get from selling the worms as bait is not worth it to me. I'd rather have them because they're useful to me around the place. But I could see, if I were to sell them, I would have to like double my production at least of worms. So I always have like more than enough for me, and then maybe sell the surplus. But
Yeah. Um. Okay. Well, we're coming up on the end of the podcast here. I know that you put out a tweet recently, and you were describing that your truck is having issues right now, and you got a GoFundMe out there for that. I know it's tough when you are trying to make your own income and dealing with a truck that's broken down. I've experienced that myself. So, if you want to tell people a little bit about that, if like maybe I'll be putting that into the show description tonight. But if maybe you want to explain that situation a little bit to the audience.
yeah, thank you, man. So my truck broke down. I have a Duramax, 2015 Duramax. It's a diesel. and it broke down the other day, and it's that's what I make my money on. That's the primary source of hauling everything I need with my landscaping company. So it broke down, and I thought I had gotten some bad fuel. Long story short, it turned out that that particular couple of years of the Duramax, Chevy was putting a fuel injection pump that was not suitable for American fuel, American diesel. It's made for mostly the diesel in Europe, which has more sulfur in it. So
Mm.
that went bad. And when those things go bad, there's a bunch of gears inside of that that shred and grind a bunch of metal shavings. And there's nothing to prevent those metal shavings from going into the rest of my fuel system.
Oh man.
So that means fuel injectors, fuel rails, fuel lines, fuel filter, housing assembly, all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the bill, the estimate ends up being like $13,500. And now the representative, there's been several lawsuits over this fuel pump, and the representative from GM says, "Oh well, we're not going to do a recall, or we're not responsible because it's only a minor inconvenience to our customers." And that's a minor inconvenience that's like $13,500. And then now I'm a landscaper, and we're heading into winter at this point anyway. And I was, I had money saved, but it's always tight during winter. And then this came out of nowhere, where all of a sudden I got this $13,000 expense, and I was just not prepared for it. It put me in a bad spot. So yeah, that's got me stressed out, and it's going to be a tough winter because of that. Because that truck is how I make my money. And also, fuck GM. They're really pissed me off. I'm never buying a new truck ever again, dude. Everything I buy is going to be pre 1990.
Yeah.
Because they're all junk now. So
They
yeah,
are, man. I have a Ford, and it is a 2003, but some of the components they put in the system, some of the ways they designed it with the exhaust gas recirculation, and it causes corrosion in there where it's like circulating the cooling fluid through the exhaust and everything, and then they use plastic components in the water pumps, and
yep,
a lot of this stuff is just like being cheap and planned obsolescence, and
that's exactly it. Yep,
a lot of these things, they make aftermarket components that are more fortified and everything like that. But if you get caught in a situation that causes a catastrophic failure like you're talking about, you're just SOL with this big bill that you gotta try to
yep.
figure out or repair it on your own. But good luck. That sounds like a whole engine overhaul issue, because that's
It's
going to
the
affect the ejectors and the
yep.
freaking cylinders and everything if all that crap gets in the system.
Yeah, the whole fuel system's got to be replaced basically. And I could do it myself, but the vast majority of the cost of that isn't even the labor, dude. The parts alone are $10,500. That's just the parts.
Wow.
So yeah, a fuel injection pump for that truck is like 5 grand. And um, yeah, no, it's just like I could do it, and it would probably take me a lot longer than maybe the mechanic would. But I'm really only saving myself like 3 grand. It's the parts alone that are like 10.5. So I'm like, what the fuck, man? So, and it could have been so easily avoided. They could have just put a different pump on it for the United States trucks, and it might have cost them a few more dollars or whatever a piece. But they just passed that. They just screwed the customer again, and just passed that cost along. And I got stuck holding the bag. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I might find out that it might be even more than that, because I might find out after we overhaul the fuel system that we got to rebuild. I got to rebuild the motor. So who knows? Who knows really? So it fucking screwed me. So um, yeah, thank you for letting me give that spiel. But um, No, I've been really stressed, and it's been taking a fucking toll on me, and it's going to be a hard winter because of it.
Yeah, and a truck is a difficult, especially a diesel truck that can haul everything you need to haul and everything. I mean, those are hard to replace. They're becoming rare, especially the older trucks that you know the older diesels, like you said. The newer ones have all this crazy computer systems on them that are just insane, and the repairs are difficult. You got to run the def in them and all that. If you got an older diesel that, I mean, they got the torque that you need to haul some gear with you and everything. I mean, they're just tough to replace. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it. I know it. I'm never buying a new one again. I'll tell you that right now. But it's going to be the older ones every time because yeah, it's all the electronic shit in the computer and all the sensors and whatnot, but also all the parts are just so much cheaper, like lower quality. I mean, not cheaper. They're not any less expensive. They're just lower quality than they used to be. They're not as durable. Um, so yeah, it's been a tough year, and it was like a week before Christmas that I got hit with this too. So it sucked, but yeah, if
I
anybody can send a few bucks my way, I'd appreciate it. So
I posted the GoFundMe link there in the chat room. If you guys, have something to spare, if you can help a brother out, Sek's a great guy, and if you've ever been in a position where you've got a vehicle that you rely on for your income go down, then you can have some empathy here. Um, but uh, but yeah,
thank
man.
you. I appreciate that.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on the show with me tonight. Is there where can people find you, Sek, and how can people tune into the podcast and all the places that you're at?
Well, I am at SEK McGora on Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Um, the podcast is Agora the Podcast. It's on Anchor and Spotify and wherever else Anchor posts to. Um, we have a Telegram channel for the podcast. It's Agora the Podcast. You can just find it there, and a Discord server for the podcast. Um, but yeah, those are the best places to find me. If you can't find it, just reach out to me on wherever at Sek Magora. That's my handle for everything.
Awesome, awesome.
But
Uh,
thanks for having me on, dude. This was fun. It was a great time.
yeah, thank you, man. One of the comments was Uncle Bonehead. He said you got a great radio voice, man.
I do.
Yeah. He said
I've heard
you
that
got
a
an
bunch.
awesome
I think
radio voice.
I've heard that a bunch, but I think I sound like an 80-year-old man. I don't know. But I guess
Nah,
I
man, you
do.
got that smooth voice, man. Yeah.
Barry, yeah, I'm Barry White over here.
Barry White, yeah, the deep baritone, yeah. So thank you for the chat, everybody that came to hang out for the show tonight. We'll be back next week and with another Meadows and Makers podcast. Appreciate everybody that tunes in. Love you guys. And enjoy the rest of your week and keep staying awesome. Or as Shaq likes to say, be excellent to each other.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you so much, brother. And let's continue chatting and staying in touch and keep bringing you back on, man.